Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to Tuesday, August 12th, spoilers on The Young and the Restless, busted Kyle Abbott will rush to clarify as Audra Charles begins a desperate cover-up. First of all, after seeing Audra kissing Kyle, Claire Newman will be filled with jealous wrath. Even if Audra started the kiss, Kyle will still rush to justify it when he finds out Claire has witnessed it. Kyle can tell Claire that he was taken aback by Audra's unexpected and unwanted kiss. Claire will realize that whatever is going on with Audra is problematic even if she thinks that. For this reason, Claire will make Audra pay attention in Tuesday's YNR episode. Claire will take charge of the issue, which may indicate that she will inform Nate Hastings of everything or at the very least threaten to do so. The news about Audra's seduction plan for Victor Newman will also be kept secret as she desperately tries to hide her betrayal error. If Claire has anything to say about it, though, it might not be feasible for very long. Claire will respond because she is tired of Audra's actions, which may eventually put Audra in a difficult situation with Nate. Claire will need to determine whether she can overcome the trust issues in her own romance. Their future may be in jeopardy despite Kyle's best efforts to save their connection. In addition, Phyllis Summers will confront Daniel Romalotti Jr. and reveal a disturbing revelation. Daniel might have some concerns about Phyllis's partnership with Kane Ashby, particularly if Phyllis discloses that her hacker skills are being used. Daniel could believe she should go while she still has the opportunity when Phyllis tells him about Kane's ambitious ambitions and her role in them. According to previews for The Young and the Restless, Daniel will make an effort to protect his mother, but Phyllis seldom heeds counsel and consistently finds herself in greater difficulty. It was the fastest the walls had ever closed in on Kyle. He had been certain that he could conceal his secret long enough to get out of trouble just hours before, but suddenly everything had changed. His mind hadn't kept up with the words that were still reverberating in the air since the meeting had happened so quickly and brutally unexpectedly. His chest was pounding frantically, and he could feel the pulse in his throat, a heavy, crushing thud. With a hard, accusing tone that broke the tension like glass breaking in the cold, the voice had said, "Kyle." And now he found himself standing in the center of his own living room, ensnared in a suffocating silence that was anything but tranquil. The proof was no longer merely circumstantial, there was tangible proof that someone had seen or heard it, and their expressions made it obvious that they took it all seriously. His throat constricted, making his voice sound weaker than he would have liked. It made no difference. The suspicion was already established, and it quickly swept throughout Genoa City. He frantically searched for justifications, excuses, and half-truths that could be reframed as innocent. But the moment he attempted to visualize expressing it out, each scenario fell apart. His phone on the table lit up with a new message, while the wall clock ticked like a taunt, getting louder by the second. Audra was the one. 3 words, "We must have a conversation." Even though Audra tried to tell herself she was still in charge, her fingers trembled as she typed it. Not in the boardroom, not in business, and definitely not in the mess she had previously navigated. She was not one to panic, but this was different. It was more than simply her. She was bound to Kyle in such a way that she would be pulled down with him, and the consequences may be disastrous. As she walked around her flat, the lengthy shadows created by the city lights stretched and changed in response to her motions. Every time she brushed over the deep red surface of the glass of wine she had poured, it sat undisturbed on the table, shaking. Like a movie on repeat, she played over the events in her mind, pausing at the parts she wished she could take back, the informational blunder, the incorrect person overhearing, the subsequent domino effect. She had always taken pleasure in her ability to plan ahead 2 or 3 steps, but this time she was surprised by how quickly the earth might change beneath her. She had to think more quickly than ever before. Damage control was the only choice available. And Kyle, well, when he was trapped, Kyle was unpredictable. It may all go apart before she could correct it if he panicked and spoke to the wrong person. Kyle didn't knock as a man would when he visited a friend when he got to her place. He entered with the haste of a person attempting to outrun a storm. He glanced about the room, hoping to find answers or some sort of reassurance, but he couldn't find anything. He responded sharply, but with a distinct edge of desperation, "Tell me you have a plan." Audra took a while to respond. She observed him closely, noting the tenseness in his jaw and the agitated shifting of his weight between his feet. He appeared to be a man whose foundation had just crumbled, and she was aware that they would both sink if she didn't quickly anchor him. She lied with ease, saying, "I do," since in circumstances such as these, confidence was just as vital as the truth, if not more. "But Kyle, you must pay attention to me. No going rogue, no improvisation. You must follow my instructions carefully if we are to escape this situation." The hollow sound of someone attempting to convince themselves they weren't already doomed was what he exhaled, not relief. She lowered her voice and stepped closer. "The plot remains tightly wound. No exceptions. You were with me, if anyone wants to know. We've already done this. The distinction is that we can no longer afford to make even one mistake." When she told the lie, it sounded nice, but Kyle was the only one who could see how messed up the truth was. They were concealing a series of incidents, each one created by decisions that, although minor at the time, now hung around their necks like anchors. Furthermore, more than one individual could reveal them. Genoa City has too many eyes and ears that took pleasure in seeing individuals like them fail. Kyle understood Audra was battling her own issues in the background, despite his want to think she could make this better. Yes, she was calculated, but even the most astute strategist can be caught off guard. Kyle acknowledged, "They've already got something," as he rubbed the back of his neck in an attempt to relieve the stress but only made it worse. "These days, it's more than just hearsay. I could see how they gazed at me. They are aware." There was a brief flicker in Audra's gaze. She didn't want to reveal the fear that was beginning to seep into her mind. With purpose in every word, she stated, "Then we make them doubt what they think they know. At the moment, confusion is our friend. However, if you lost control of the story, confusion may be a treacherous ally." In actuality, control was already slipping away from them. Whether they could bury the truth deep enough to survive or whether it would blow up in their faces in unexpected ways would all be determined in the following 24 hours. A powerful case study of deceit, desperation, and the psychological processes that lead people to commit cover-ups when faced with discovery is provided by the drama that is developing between Kyle and Audra. A lot can be learned about human behavior under pressure, the dynamics of trust and betrayal, and the extent people will go to in order to protect their reputations from the situation where Kyle finds himself in a precarious situation and Audra races to minimize the impact. The complexities of their conduct, potential causes, and wider ramifications for interpersonal and public relationships are all explored in this examination. The pivotal point in this case is when Kyle was busted for some kind of wrongdoing or dishonesty. Although the specifics of his offense are not given, Audra's strong response indicates that the stakes are severe. There is a regular pattern to the immediate aftermath of any scandal, whether it involves professional negligence, infidelity, or any other kind of betrayal: panic, damage management, and an effort at rationalization. Kyle was unprepared for the revelation, as evidenced by his hasty explanation, which suggests that he either misjudged the chance of being discovered or believed he was invulnerable. This is consistent with cognitive dissonance theories in psychology, which hold that people perform mental acrobatics to make sense of their behavior in relation to their perception of themselves. In order to make his activities seem less serious, Kyle's natural reaction when faced is to fabricate a story that downplays responsibility, transfers blame, or distorts the facts rather than immediately confessing. Another level of intricacy is added by Audra's desperate cover-up. Her participation raises the possibility that she was either implicated in the initial conduct or had a personal stake in shielding Kyle, and hence herself, from the repercussions. The word frantic suggests that her actions are reactive rather than strategic, motivated more by fear. Her motivations are called into question by this. Is her behavior motivated by self-preservation, loyalty, or a mix of the two? The revelation of Kyle's wrongdoing can cause collateral harm, damaging her reputation by association, if she and Kyle have a personal or professional relationship. In these situations, the natural tendency to hide is motivated by both self-defense and the need to protect the other person. The motive to hide the truth increases with the degree of interdependence in their lives. The way that controversies are handled in society is also reflected in the interactions between Kyle and Audra. The first reaction to exposure in the corporate, personal, and political domains is frequently obfuscation or denial rather than openness. This propensity results from the idea that, even in cases where the truth is unavoidable, manipulating the story can lessen harm. The tendency to hide remains despite the fact that delayed or dishonest responses usually worsen consequences, according to research on crisis communication. This pattern is shown in the actions of Kyle and Audra, who choose short-term avoidance over direct confrontation, which frequently results in deeper entanglements and more severe long-term effects. The function of trust is another crucial element in this situation. Any relationship, whether personal or professional, is weakened once dishonesty is exposed. The knowledge of the betrayal lingers, fostering mistrust even if Kyle and Audra are successful in their cover-up. Once trust has been damaged, it is hard to restore, and the effort required to keep up a front frequently surpasses the short-term comfort of avoiding repercussions. This is especially noticeable when cover-ups are gradually exposed, since every new level of deceit necessitates more lies, which puts more psychological strain on individuals involved. It is also necessary to look at the public aspect of their situation. The pressure to defend and explain Kyle's conduct would increase if they were made public or semi-public. Since reputational harm can have long-lasting implications on relationships and jobs, Audra's efforts are made much more urgent by the social and professional ramifications. The stakes are bigger than ever in the era of digital media, when knowledge spreads quickly. The need to control the story becomes even more urgent when one mistake is not handled carefully, since it can result in widespread condemnation. Kyle and Audra are probably both psychologically under a lot of stress, which causes poor judgment and illogical choices. Perceived threats set off the fight-or-flight reaction, which frequently takes precedence over reason and leads to rash decisions that could make matters worse. Audra's frantic actions imply that she is functioning in this elevated state, where easing discomfort rather than putting a long-term solution in place is the primary objective. Focusing on the symptom rather than the underlying cause is a typical crisis management mistake. It is impossible to ignore the moral ramifications of their behavior. Even when driven by loyalty or fear, cover-ups prolong injury by avoiding responsibility. When the initial transgression had an impact on others, such in business fraud or personal betrayal, the harm is exacerbated by the failure to admit fault. Because they show a conscious effort to avoid justice, cover-ups are typically seen by society as more serious than the original offense. Thus, if Kyle and Audra's activities are further revealed, they may face harsher criticism than if they had acknowledged their mistakes right on. Power dynamics can also be understood from the interactions between Kyle and Audra. One's role in the cover-up may take precedence over the other's conduct if they have greater emotional, professional, or social clout. For example, Audra's cooperation may be motivated more by pressure or fear of reprisals than by true loyalty if she is under Kyle's authority at work. On the other hand, their cooperation implies a mutual agreement to safeguard common interests if they are equals. The balance of responsibilities between them is determined by the subtleties of their relationship. In summary, Busted Kyle scrambles to explain, Audra's frantic cover-up is a microcosm of how people behave in general when they are exposed and ashamed. The natural tendency to hide, defend, or divert is strong, yet it frequently causes more harm than the initial transgression. While the wider ramifications touch on themes of trust, power, and ethical accountability, Kyle's panic and Audra's desperation emphasize the emotional and psychological toll of deception. The pattern is always the same, whether in private relationships or public scandals. The longer the cover-up lasts, the more disastrous the final reckoning will be. Transparency and accountability are the only real solutions, but getting there is frequently a difficult and fearful process.